our section helped to solidify the 87 drum line because we did shit that had never been done before.
James, I'm going to tell you, Vanguard, growing up, my high school years, I wore a Vanguard uniform. I grew up idolizing your team. 80, 81, 82, although I will admit 82 when I heard the Garfield recording, the third album, the vinyl, so it was, so volume 3,
I remember.
I probably wore out volume 3 a little bit more than volume 2 that year.
Well, 82 was the start of, I think, the start of the Cadets transformation.
It was. It definitely was. I was either the 11th or 10th cut from the 83 snail. I was either the last or second to last guy to get cut from that snail line. And I was determined all summer 83 to just show I could play snare parts on that fourth bass drum. The book wasn't written for it, but when we had to take that drum off the truck, put it on, loosen up, you had about 5 or 10 minutes to go off into a corner and just do your own thing. I did my own thing. And throughout that summer, I just did it better and better and better. And I just remembered my roots as a younger kid, all that rudimental bass drumming. I just took it to whatever level I could on my own for my own personal satisfaction. Little did I know, Rod Meckley was watching me in... I think it was somewhere in Massachusetts, the U.S. Open, not the U.S. Open, the World Open, whatever. Yeah. And so he tells me in 87, you don't know this, but I was a youngster. I saw you put that drum on and play things I'd never seen being played on a bass drum. And I went home and told my father, I'm going to practice my ass off even more now after what I saw that guy do on a bass drum. Here we are 3 years later, he's the captain of the 87 snail line. And this is what he tells me. This is what he tells me when he first meets me. So that alone was inspiration for me. I've got to live up to the bar. I've got to, whatever I can contribute from the bottom end, that big piece of furniture, I'm going to just give everything I can.
Was that you guys' home show?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was at the Clifton show. And, I was like, finally, this is a chance I get to see the Cadets. You guys were amazing. The snare line was insane. And so I go over there and talk to them and, we chopped it up just for a minute and I go back to where our buses were parked and they're gone. So now I have to go to you guys' staff and they take me back. I was like, you guys, I have no idea in New Jersey. I don't know where we're staying. They're like, we know where you guys are. They take me back. And of course, Ralph and GR, and Gail are like just livid, extremely livid. And I was trying to explain to them, like, it was no disrespect to Santa Clara, but I'm a fan of drum corps and these guys are doing something really special and I want to see it. I was a super huge fan. And so I wanted to see you guys play. And I know you guys were all about your business, but I was a fan of drum corps, and I was coming from a small, I think it was called A class back in that day. So I was in a little tiny corps, and the Cadets and Blue Devils and everyone. So the fact that I was in a corps that was even in the conversation with the Cadets, much less beating Blue Devils and Phantom, it was amazing. And they were just having none of it. So to be able to talk to you guys now and be friends with MJ and just see what you guys were thinking is a total honor.
Kiefer loved Santa Clara's bass drum line. We sat down with Kiefer and decided that the bass drum line was going to do something special and do something different. Our model was Santa Clara. We wanted to be better and as good as Santa Clara's bass drum line because they, at that time, was the standard. In 86, I marched 5. The 5 drum until Mookie played it was just the bottom guy. And I had the honor to move from 5 to 1. I had one goal to be as good as Scott Cassidy. He was the goal. And we get a lot of credit. Dreed and myself, we get a lot of credit. But he was my idol.
This is just to throw Michael Jones under the bus a little bit.
Oh,
what
wow.
what are cheater parts? What are those?
8 notes. That's in the show. And those
Yeah.
are
208 while we're
That's
flying
right.
backwards.
That was the coolest shit ever. You know, you'd hear it. I thought that was written into the book. I thought that was part of the thing, and that's kind of the one of the defining things of the cadet bass line was those eighth notes up top.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Michael, I wasn't there, but to me, from the outside looking in during those 3 years of my absence, it looked like it started to gel in '85.
When I hopped out and started teaching, I kind of had a pretty good idea of how to clean the drum line.
I didn't notice a change, Mook, because you had like that year before. But for me, coming in '85, it just seemed intense. I think it had to do with angst coming out of the snare line and being an instructor that year.
So I started teaching in '85. It was myself, Glenn, Steve Kiefer, who was my bass tech for 25 years, starting in, I think, '84, and then Hannah Rowe.
I think that had all to do with it. He had a chance to take the drum off and focus on kicking ass. And once he did that, he knew what he wanted to see happen, and he just did it.
You know, I marched drum corps 6 years, never marched with a great drum line. And I was like, damn, the drum lines that I'm going to teach, they're going to be great, period. And if you're not coming with me, I'm dragging you there.
He kind of defined the marching. He kind of defined that a little bit more. But also the addition of Glenn Crosby that year. And we had Steve Kiefer, who always seemed to know what it was supposed to be for basses. You actually came in a great year because that was the flip in '85.
Yeah. The cadet drum line in '86, while it was a micro version, you had a smaller snare line. They were tight as a duck's ass, and they were on their way. They were right there.
The most interesting challenge was coming off of '86.
'85, '86 was kind of, a lot of those guys kind of stayed.
Coming into '87, the talent that came in the winter, especially in the drum line, was pretty incredible.
And so we started getting, I guess, better drummers, like drummers that we didn't have to teach how to play rolls or flams. I mean, they could play stuff.
They started playing things that were leaps ahead of what we had done before.
'87, we had a lot of Canadians come down, like Lee Bettis, Scott Clark.
And '87 was the opus, so to speak.
I think, like, deep down inside, you kind of knew that it was going to be special because of, like Dave said, '86 was a bad year, but a lot of staff left after '85, and we had to kind of, pick up the pieces again. I think we all kind of were hungry after that '86 year to kind of get back to doing what we know how to do with the staff, the talented staff that we had.
Why was it that Garfield didn't seem to be a social drum line? Like, we didn't get together with other drum lines. We didn't. Why was that?
It was all business. You were there to perform. You were there to kick it. You were there to just excel. And there was no other reason to be there. So that's why it appeared that we weren't a giddy group of guys. We weren't the cool guys hanging out. We weren't party animals. It was the programming.
I felt like all the 3 years I needed to be there, I didn't have time for that crap. I had to worry about me, my spots, my parts, and what I was doing, and I didn't have time to go get involved with other people.
We're trying to do, and we're doing much more than is expected. So we have to work much harder because we're trying to figure this shit out, and we're gonna figure it out.
It always seemed bando, to kind of go out and kind of do the whole drum off thing. It was like you want to keep your kids out of trouble, so you keep them busy. So we were always so busy, we didn't have time. We were always like, On the bus, off the bus, over here, over there, stay together, do this.
You either want to be a musician or you want to be a rock star. And I always wanted to be a musician. And you would become a rock star by virtue of being a great musician. And that comes down to focus. And you guys were talking about, what made the Cadets drumline so special. And I think that's what Angst and Hannum brought to it, was focus. And that's why we weren't so chummy with the other drum lines. It was because we were focused on what we were doing.
We all decided that we were there for the guy behind us and the guy in front of us.
We thrived off of each other.
We was balls to the wall from the moment that we woke up to the moment we went to sleep.
It was just one movement. We became one.
The cadets that year, I as an instructor looking at the cadets, I saw my competition, and I was definitely worried. I also watched the cadets as a spectator. I was thoroughly entertained, and I think that everything that you guys are talking about that you did that year was pushing marching percussion to the next level, to stuff we see nowadays.
Let's say that things were different at prelims. What if that was the case with you guys? How would you have responded to that?
I don't think we would have done anything different.
Mookie and I went to sit in the stands when they announced the scores at prelims. Cadets had won, and people started slapping us on the back, and Mookie and I just shook each other's hands. We're like, yeah, okay, we got another show to do.
Let's go. Yeah, job's not done yet.
Job's not done yet.
Beautiful. True East Coast.
We were kind of there other years, where, you kind of, you're coming from behind. So all you can do is what you've been doing and just focus a little more.
Another thing to note, when we took that core picture, I still have my laminated copy. Nobody is smiling. All right. We were just told we won prelims. Nobody's smiling. It's all business.
I don't think that winning was ever a part of our vocabulary that year. It didn't matter.
It's funny to hear you guys speak and Mike speak and different folks speak and then Santa Clara folks speak. 87 was such a letdown for me. That was it. I was done with drum corps for 20 years. The question is, what do you think about the perfect score that night? What are your feelings about scoring 30 out of 30 that night?
We earned it. No hesitation in that response. We earned it.
My first thought, we earned it.
We earned it. If James, if you lived with us through that summer and you got to witness every minute of every day that we were strapped in and the approach and the climb, we earned it. We actually got the 10 on the field about 2 or 3 weeks prior to finals. Yeah. And when we got that, yeah, we were happy, but I don't think anybody was surprised. We knew it was coming.
Hannum and I used to talk about it, and then when it happened, we weren't surprised.
We knew it was coming in July.
It wasn't like, oh, we got perfect 30.
The physical achievement of what those kids did at that particular time was spectacular.
We reached a point in July where it was fine tuning. It wasn't rebuilding. Maybe the core was redesigning drill moves, but the drum line wasn't rewriting.
Bass drum solo. We got that in July.
Bass drum solo. Exactly.
The amount that they moved and the things that they were playing while they were doing it at that time weren't even contemplated on the sheets. They were, you had to give them extra credit.
Let's go to Mr. Krieger next. What did you think about the 30 score?
Honestly, I was grateful, and I think we were fortunate to have peaked at the right time. There was a little bit of an oh shit moment. The three judges that did those three scores came together and said, "What did you give?" And I gave him a 10. What would you give? I gave it 10. No, and there was like, holy crap, we just gave him a perfect 30. And I don't think there was any premeditation on that. It was accidental, but also intentional, if you know what I mean, because then we earned it in three different ways. So it happened. But I thought we were fortunate enough to have the right amount of stuff, 8 bars or 16 bars. I don't know if we didn't play for 16 bars, maybe.
That's what Mike said too, but I was just trying to prove a point. I was exercising hyperbole. I was exercising hyperbole just to prove a point.
That's cool.
Mr. Corley.
So I think I'm a little different than I used to be, but I'm gonna speak on this as I used to be. I believe we deserve that 30. We did not play the hardest parts when it comes to comparing what Blue Devils played. But partner, for what we accomplished, the way at that point we changed that thing, I don't apologize for it.
I know it's a controversial topic. I know that there are haters out there. Then I know there are people on the other side of the equation. But the bottom line is the only people that really know what went into that are our battery, our pit, our whole group and the staff. The whole core, even the horn line, everybody, they knew what we were doing. We were one strong machine, and we just got stronger and stronger and stronger in those last 4 weeks of the tour.
Some of the stuff that we had to deal with too, besides the physical, was the environmental challenges too of, basic things like, a curve on a snare line. You had to balance differently. You had to adjust things. If the side of the snare line was kind of facing the front, or the way the bass drums were, maybe passing through. And we had, I think too, we that was a strong line as far as players, great attitudes, great work ethic. I mean, probably one of the top maybe 5 lines I've taught in 40 years, where it was just they inspired me. That was the thing too. It was like I beat the crap out of them for the most part, because I was 20, whatever I was, 25 or 26, and so I had a lot of energy. But they pushed me too, so it was like this back and forth thing.
The 30 out of 30. Mike hates to call it a perfect score. He likes to say that they met all of the requirements on the sheet to their fullest.
We maxed out the sheet.
Yeah, they did what they were asked to their best capability. He doesn't like the perfect moniker, but I call it a perfect score because that's what it was.
When I hear people talk about it, their point of view is always, you guys couldn't have played perfect, and DCI did a disservice to Drumlines of America. So when I make that comment, that's what that is in reference to.
I get it. We've had this discussion a billion and eight
many times.
Well, I think if people talk about like we didn't play perfect, it's probably guys that were under the tick system. Because drumlines didn't physically do anything as far as moving.
But if you're saying this is the way the activity is going, and this is the way that we can push the activity forward, then yeah, that 30 score was to let everyone else know that this is it.
But James, they couldn't have done that if we didn't play good.
Right? No, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, we played.
You guys played great. You played awesome. I wouldn't, and no offense, guys, I don't think you played as clean as the Blue Devils, neither did we. But you guys did. Blue Devils didn't march as well as you guys did. Blue Devils didn't have the musicality as you guys did. And so it was all of the combination of marching your asses off, playing your asses off, playing clean.
Taking risk, the whole package.
Taking risk, exposure, different listening situations, all of that stuff. So that's, if you look at what cats are doing now, it's not what Blue Devils were doing back then. Even Blue Devils aren't doing what Blue Devils used to do.
The show was and is still to me today one of my all-time favorites, design-wise, visually, the way the music goes together, and understanding where those parts of the chart come from and how that all got fit together. To me, that was a fascinating thing to watch and just be a part of and learn from.
It was about the show. It was really about the show. And I know this is a talk about the bass line and the drum line, but this bass line was exquisite. The drum line was amazing. The leadership was amazing. But the show was just the right show at the right time, and we were the right people to execute it.
Hannum wrote the right book for that show, and then he gave us the job. The challenge was perform it, and we did.
It felt like that we were not really, let's say, trying hard. That's the wrong way to say it. We weren't acting. We were performing our show, but it was an extremely natural exhibition. It wasn't like we were putting on a show. It was like, yeah, this is it. This is just reality. There was a purity about that I think was rewarded.
10-4, fucking high rolling.
Our thing was like, you go out there and you don't move because you want to respect the other groups. I mean, it's, if you're jumping up and down and this other group that maybe didn't win, it's disrespectful for them. I remember the video went over to Vanguard. Now, great players, and there was some awesome stuff, but I just remember like they were just like pounding on the drums. And I was standing right in the front there. I was like, these guys are pissed.
Your thoughts on Retreat and how everything went down in Retreat, Float, Blue Devils, Santa Clara, all that.
Human nature. I understand it. It is what it is. Tom Float needed to do what he did. James, you needed to do what you did.
James, you were the one that jammed your sticks in the bottom of your snare.
Yes.
James, I thought you would have come to kill me.
I was like, all right, so that's what they do. They destroy their drums at the end of the show. All right, they think they're John Bonham or a guy from the Who or whatever. So
you are a person that has been in my mind for the past 30 years. What did I do to make this happen? What was my role in this, and how do I feel about that? And I had to be okay with the fact that, yeah, I won and this guy lost. Man, I really feel for that guy. And if I was in his shoes, what would I do? And I have to be okay with that from a sporting perspective, from a competitive perspective. And that was kind of a new concept for me.
We didn't hate you, and it was just the frustration of the year and everything, the result. It wasn't directed towards the cadets.
And to get to that night and experience that, you have to let it out. You let it out. That's it.
I think it was special winning. I think it was special getting to 30. But I can honestly say that out of everything that I remember in that year, my biggest treat was Retreat. I loved it. I absolutely loved it because I was very competitive being an athlete, and I had to give up running track in college, so I was missing the competitive aspect of things. And to see the emotion, it felt like competition.
In my opinion, there was no way that there was anybody out there that could beat us. It was just an impossibility to me.
What are you basing that on? Because you didn't see us. So how could you say that? But I guess it's team spirit. Team spirit.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's this competitive thing. Why do it if it's not to win and to do it at the best? Like, just from my experience leading up to that, and then I was like, man, we're pretty good. I was wrong. You know what I mean? In the end, I was wrong. But that's just the feeling that I went in there with.
And I'm going to give you guys a little break on that because, man, you guys have been undefeated as a core until the night before. I can't say that we wouldn't have had some of the same issues. We were undefeated drumline that year.
I would rather finish 11th than second.
With respect, James, I can't say that I agree with that perspective. I mean, I would rather be second than 11th anytime, because when you're second, then you're coming back next time. After I worked with the cadets, I worked with Olympic athletes, and they said getting to the 99th percentile is one level of effort. Getting to 99.99th percentile, that's a whole lot level of effort. But once you're there, then you tend to stay there unless you really mess things up. All throughout the tour, we were told we're encouraged not to worry about the scores. It's like, how was your show last night? Don't let the scores reflect that. It's how did you do? So it was about the focus of making the craft really, 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 really good. And that's, again, a work ethic that I still carry with me throughout today. I didn't get to see the Santa Clara show until semifinals. That was the first time I really got to see Santa Clara, and I was like, holy crap, that's who we're competing against. You know, these guys are really good. But that was the first time that we saw their show because we were that focused. We were that sheltered from everything else that was going on.
I think especially with the cadets, you're just working and you don't understand what other people think about you. You know what I mean? You guys are just being yourselves. But as I said before, the stuff cadets were doing and the approach off the right foot, ballet poses, nerds, drum nerds, cats who know, it's cadets, you know, and you guys.
87 drumline, none of us could ever come to a time that we said we shoulda, coulda, or woulda. We was balls to the wall from the moment that we woke up to the moment we went to sleep.